Alrighty, so it's the final match week before a month-long break from MLS due to the Leeds Cup tournament that is actually going to start as soon as July 21st, as we got a couple of games that is going to happen during that day, and I will definitely be making some Leeds Cup content leading up to the tournament, talking about which team coming out of MLS most likely is going to win it, and also my prediction video of all these group of who is going to be advancing into the knockout round. Now, the other big event that is going to be happening after this match week is over is we're going to have the MLS All-Star Game. That's going to happen on July 19th. And I'm not going to lie, I almost forgot the All-Star Game is going to be on July 19th because, again, it's kind of a weird timing that they decided to have it before Leeds Cup. And especially with some of those teams that's playing on the 21st. I mean, I cannot imagine the fact that some of these players that play in the All-Star Game, are they going to just go straight to their club level, especially for those players that needs to play in those Leeds Cup game in the 21st. I mean, that's like 2 day rest. I mean, that's kind of insane to see. But yeah, I'll definitely do a review of that game. And obviously this year, unlike last year when I did attend the All-Star game in Minnesota, I will not be attending the All-Star game this year in DC. With that being said, we do have a full slate of action with 14 games that's going to be happening, and once again, it's going to be happening on Saturday night. And looks like the Quakes are the bye week sweepstake this week, as they, of course, are the only team not playing this week. I kind of stopped keeping track of who, of course, gets win the bye week sweepstake, but I know the Quakes, of course, won it this week because that game that I saw when they play against Seattle was actually the last game before they will have another MLS game all the way to August 20th and are already kind of in that part of a month-long break that they're going to get. Though, again, they like pretty much every MLS team is going to do is going to be part of the Leeds Cup tournament in just a bit. But we start off with the first game, and there's definitely some big games coming out of this week. We start off with Atlanta United versus Orlando City. So this game is going to be 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, and of course it has to be on FS1 because anytime when you have an Atlanta or Orlando game, it is definitely going to draw a lot of eyeballs. But coming into this game, it's kind of a mediocre kind of game between both of these teams. I mean, both of these teams kind of have a relatively similar season where they have had some inconsistency. But Atlanta 9-8-6, while Orlando 9-7-6. And in terms of the all-time meeting, Atlanta still dominates the all-time meeting with a 9-7-3 record over Orlando. But in terms of the last five head-to-head, it's been kind of tight. 1-1 draw last time both of these teams met. Before Atlanta did win 1-0 on the road against Orlando. Then it was a 1-1 draw between Atlanta and Orlando. And then Atlanta won 3-0 against Orlando City. And then Orlando City winning 3-2 against Atlanta United. Keep in mind, I don't think Orlando City, I think they might have actually got one win against Atlanta United when they're playing on the road. This is a team that, Mercedes-Benz Stadium has definitely not been kind to Orlando City. Though, again, in the last game, they took a 4-0 hammering, and that, by the inconsistency theorem that Orlando City has been following this season, you would expect that they would definitely show up in this game, especially they are definitely a much better road team than they are playing at home. But then again, Atlanta this season, they have got some big home wins, and I know for a fact that don't be surprised there's going to be a 90th minute winner from either of these teams because that's kind of how it is with Atlanta United game, especially with big games with a lot of bragging rights at stake. So yeah, should be an interesting game between both of these old Southern foes. But in terms of the next match, this is definitely going to be one that a lot of people will be talking about because it's FC Cincinnati versus Nashville. Now, obviously, the rivalry between both of the team goes back to the USL level, and I always said that this is a very underrated rivalry, but now it is really up there in terms of one of the more exciting rivalry with the way that both of these teams are doing very well this season in the East. But Cincinnati still leads the Eastern Conference. It still leads the Supporter Shield standings with a 14-6-2 record, though they have actually now pulled out to an 8-point lead over the nearest team, that is the New England Revolution. While Nashville, yeah, they have kind of slipped a little bit in these last couple of weeks with an 11-5-7 record. And don't forget, they will not have both of their outside backs because both of their outside backs with Daniel Lovitz and Jack Moore was suspended because of red card in the last one. In terms of the all-time meeting, 2-2-1 in favor of Nashville, and the last five head-to-head matchup it was a 1-0 win that Cincinnati has against Nashville. Then it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams. Then Nashville had a crazy 6-3 win against Cincinnati before Nashville won 3-0 against Cincinnati, and then it was a 2-2 draw between both of these teams. So yeah, in these last couple of meetings, the goal scoring has definitely went down compared to what we saw in the first three meetings. But either way, I think Cincinnati is going to be heavy favorites coming into this one. Not only the fact that they're leading the Supporters Shield standings, but they are going to get some of their key players back. I mean, Brendan Vasquez, I expect he should be back in this team, so that definitely adds a little bit more fuel to this attack that has already been one of the best attack in the league. And not to mention, they're playing at home. I mean, this season they have been untouchable at home. Besides that one draw that they had against New England, they have been perfect so far this season at home. And Nashville, unlike last season, this is a team that hasn't been doing as well on the road as we've seen last season or even in the previous season. And as I mentioned, Gary Smith team, they started to kind of crumble in the last couple of games, and that not only the fact that even their MVP player Hani Mukhtar has kind of cooled off a little bit. He hasn't been able to find the back of the net for the past couple of games too, and I think that's kind of the key for Cincinnati in this one. If they can shut down Hani Mukhtar, then they can have a chance to shut down this Nashville team. Though again, this Nashville team will get Jacob Schaffelberg back in this team, and knowing what Jacob Schaffelberg has done in that game between Canada and U.S., I'm pretty sure Nashville desperately want him back to this team. So they also will get some attacking pieces back in this one. But yeah, should be a very entertaining game. Again, I won't be surprised this could be a preview in terms of a game that we could see maybe even in the conference final or even in the conference semifinal in the playoffs this season. Then we go to Montreal, and they play against Charlotte in this one. So Montreal 8-2-12, and Charlotte is 6-8-8. I mean, could you say that maybe this is kind of a desperation derby for two teams that are below the red line that desperately need a win? But in terms of the all-time meeting, 2-1-0 in favor of Montreal. Last five head-to-head meeting, both of these teams met earlier this season. It was a 0-0 draw before Montreal did win 2-1 against Charlotte, and then Montreal did win 2-0 on the road against Charlotte FC. Now Montreal, they have definitely not been playing well these last couple of games, and I think that's kind of alarming with the fact that they're not playing well even when they're playing at home this season. I mean, I remember when they start the season in terms of the first half of the season when they were playing at home, they were untouchable. Like this team made Stas Saputo an absolute fortress, but the last couple of games, that fortress has definitely been breached. Teams on the road has been able to get points away from Stas Saputo, and I'm pretty sure Charlotte is going to try to do the same thing. I mean, again, this Charlotte team, it's kind of a very frustrating team because every time you thought that maybe they turn a corner, they suffer a bit of a setback. So yeah, again, for both of these teams that are just below the red line, they desperately need to trying to get a win. And not to mention, what's kind of weird about the East right now is that the team between 10th all the way down to 13 are all tied at 26 points, and they're all actually only 3 points behind Chicago of all team in that final playoff spot in the ninth position. So yeah, there's definitely a battle in that bottom spot, and that there's going to be a lot of teams that is going to trying to get themselves above the red line, trying to challenge the team that's above the red line. That's not that actually far from dropping below the red line too. With that being said, moving on, we got New England versus DC United. So New England 11-7-4, while DC 8-6-9. Now, in terms of the all-time meeting, 39-16-37 in favor of DC, as both of these teams original 10 teams, or though they are the two teams that have been into the league since the inception. But in terms of the last five head-to-head matchup, it was a 2-1 win that New England has against DC before a 1-0 win that New England has against DC. Then it was DC winning 3-2 against New England. Then New England winning 3-2 on the road against DC before New England winning 3-2 against DC. So obviously, besides that one meeting that DC was able to win against New England, the Revs has kind of had DC number in these past couple of matchup, and I expect this should be a win for New England. Though again, their performance this season, at home, at least in the last couple of one, hasn't been pretty. And this is a DC team that is capable of getting wins. I mean, they have a lot of good attacking talent. It's all about whether or not if they can one whether or not those attacking talent can actually show up, because there's times where they have showed up and there's time that they haven't. And that again, DC is also one of those teams that's kind of a frustrating team to figure out, because you can see that this team could be good, but can they just kind of gel it together? And that more times or not, at least recently that has just not happened. But New England's got to be still be careful in this one because again, in the last couple of home games, yes, they've been able to walk away with victory, but it has kind of been in a pretty ugly sense, and in some way, Georgi Petrovic has been kind of stealing points for this Revs team and really stealing wins for this Revs team because in the last game against Atlanta, yes, they won 2-1 in that one, but a huge thanks to the fact that Georgi Petrovic was an absolute wall and the fact that he only conceded that one goal in the 90th minute. Like if it wasn't for Georgi Petrovic's heroics, maybe Atlanta would have got at least a draw out of that game against New England. But that being said, moving on, we got the Philadelphia Union versus NYCFC. So this game is between the Union, who is 11-4-7, and NYCFC, that is 5-11-7. Now, in terms of the all-time meeting, it is very tight, 10-9 in favor of NYCFC. And by the way, this is also a very interesting matchup. But again, you would think that the Union should be able to win this one easily, but NYCFC, they have shown recently that they at least have shown some sign that they can turn things around. But in terms of the last five head-to-head matchup, it was a 3-1 win that the Union has against NYCFC, and of course that was the Eastern Conference Final. And did I mention the fact this is a rematch of the Eastern Conference Final? I mean, it felt like a long time ago with the way that NYCFC has really kind of took the fall from grace this season. But then NYCFC, of course, winning 3-1 against, or the Union did win 3-1 against NYCFC before the Union did win 2-1 against NYCFC. And then the Union did win 2-0 against NYCFC, but then what we saw in the other Eastern Conference final back in 2021, it was NYCFC winning 2-1 against the Philadelphia Union. So at least the Union has kind of had NYCFC number in the last couple of meetings. And again, anytime when you have like a rematch of a big game in the playoffs last season, which was the Eastern Conference final, in this one, yeah, this should be interesting to see how both of these team is going to do, and that again, the Union, they kind of grind out a bit of an ugly result in the one against Nashville, but they'll take it because not a lot of team has been able to beat Nashville, especially when they're playing at home. And we'll see whether or not they can carry that momentum against an NYCFC team that that new striker that they of course signed, I don't think is going to be ready in time for this game. I don't think the transfer window open until well, actually I think the transfer window is open, but I'm not sure if he's going to be ready to play in this one. Moving on, we got the Chicago Fire versus Toronto FC. So the Chicago Fire, pretty much living up to their name right now. They are red hot right now, one of the hottest team in the league with a 7-8-7 record, and they play against a TFC team that is just basically in CU next season mode with a 3-10-10 record, and this is going to be the first of three games that starts at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Well, originally it was actually going to be four games that starts at that time, but one of the game actually moved back an hour from the kickoff, and you probably know which game that is, and definitely for a good reason. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 14, 12, and 10 in favor of TFC, and the last five head-to-head meeting, it was a no-no draw between both of these teams last time they met, but then Chicago did win 2-0 against Toronto, then Toronto won 3-2 against Chicago, then Toronto won 3-1 against Chicago before Toronto did win 2-1 against the Chicago Fire. So at least TFC has had some wins against Chicago in the last couple of meetings, but I mean, I feel like this would be the most Chicago Fire-esque kind of moment if they do lose this one. Like I think this is why if you're a Fire fan, as much as they have been on a hot streak with them winning 4 out of the last 5 games, you just wonder when the shoe is going to drop because it feels like the shoe always drop whenever this team go on a red hot streak that eventually things are going to fall apart or they lose to a team that they expect to win and then they lose to them and it start a cold streak. The Fire is probably hoping this is not going to be that game. I mean, all points are saying that the Fire should win this game, but again, this is the Chicago Fire. I mean, you can't just say that even in the hot streak that they're on right now that it's a complete sure thing that they're going to get all 3 points. And also that's just kind of the case in MLS too because we have seen some surprises in MLS and that, as much as I know Toronto is kind of in CU next season mode, they're going to try to play some spoilers, and this will definitely be a good way to do so, especially for for all those teams that is below the red line in the Eastern Conference, they're going to be rooting for TFC hard because with the way that Chicago is basically that last team that's going to be making it in if the playoffs started today. Then we go to the next game, which is Minnesota versus LAFC. So Minnesota is back home, which usually that's a good thing for many team, but unfortunately for this team, it's not really a good thing with the way that they have their struggle to get wins at Allianz Field. Again, still only 2 wins this season at Allianz Field, and this is going to be tough for them to get a third one as they play against LAFC, who is 10-6-6. And in the last game, at least in the last 20 minutes, they kind of had that small sign of life that they look like the LAFC off the old in that game against St. Louis. But in this game they're gonna have to go on the road, play against Minnesota in a place where they have never won before in their time when they play against Minnesota. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 2 wins apiece, 4 draws. There's been a lot of draws in terms of the last 5 head-to-head meeting. It was a one draw between both of these team, and then LAFC did win 2-0 against Minnesota. Then it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams, a 2-2 draw between both of these teams, and then another 1-1 draw between both of these teams. So, yeah, again, for this Minnesota team, I mean, again, I want to believe the fact that that performance that they have Houston can carry into this one, but that's a big if because I thought that was the case after the game against the Timbers, and look what happened in the very next game. I mean, in the very next game, I thought they played well at home too, but they couldn't take advantage of those chances. So maybe this is just kind of one of those teams that I think the reason why maybe Minnesota has been winning a lot of road games and they have won a lot of home games is that they're more comfortable of being more of the antagonist rather than being the protagonist and being the one that is controlling the game because with the way that they have controlled games and they have created chances, I think that just kind of put more pressure on them to have to finish it and they're unable to do so. Whereas they have that mindset of the fact that they are getting limited chances, they have to put it away. They have done a good job in terms of it. I mean, it's kind of a weird mindset of saying it, but it's kind of true with this team. I mean, it's kind of the reason why they have really struggled this season at home. And again, with the way that they have a very heavy home stretch in the second half of the season, I'm really hoping that eventually turns around because the Allianz Field should not be a place where teams should easily get come into to and easily able to get points on the road. This team really need to establish themselves to make Allianz Field a fortress again. And I'm pretty sure the Wonderwall is trying their best, and even the fans are trying their best. But we'll see whether or not if they can do so. And a good step of that is show that clinical finishing that they had against Houston and bring that in this game against LAFC. But moving on, we got St. Louis versus Inter Miami. So I want to congratulate St. Louis of becoming the last team to play against Inter Miami before Messi eventually will be making his debut with this team. And I'm pretty sure in the second half of the season, I don't think a lot of teams would like to play against Inter Miami. I mean, I think the only good thing is that at least fans of teams that are gonna watch Inter Miami play when they're on the road. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be sold out everywhere because of the whole Messi hype that is going on. But obviously, I know there's gonna be some that's gonna be fearful because if Messi is gonna bring his magic that he does to this Miami team, Miami can definitely go on a bit of a run in the second half of the season. Now the question is that can they finally snap out of this long winless run that they have, which I think is at 9 games right now in terms of the last time they got a win. And this is going to be tough to do so because they're playing against a St. Louis team that I think they kind of feel like they want to use this game as the game where they can get free points. I feel like they kind of punt away the game against LAFC. I mean, that game, they definitely rotated the team and they feel like I mean, I can understand why they do so because, if you're going to have to play on the road against LAFC and even though LAFC hasn't done very well, if you have a chance to get a win in front of your ruckus crowd and against the worst team in the league, then you got to of course maybe put your eggs in the basket and think that is a bigger chance for you to get wins, and at least that's what Bradley Carnell was hoping that is going to be the case. But in this game, St. Louis 12-2-8, while Miami 5-3-13. And again, this is the first ever meeting between both of these teams. And again, I also think that if you're St. Louis, you can't take Miami lightly in this one because these Miami players, they're definitely fighting for their job because this team is gonna definitely change as the time goes along, especially in the second half of the season. So I think a lot of these guys are definitely going to be fighting for their jobs because once they do have those reinforcement, some of these players are probably not going to be part of the roster, or so they're going to be fighting hard to try and impress their new head coach Tata Martino, who I think he's now started to coach this team. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think they have their interim head coach in anymore with Javi Morales, but still, yeah, this is not. I don't think St. Louis should take Miami lightly, even if Miami has been having a really tough stretch, and that they just can't wait until Leeds Cup begin, and can't wait until the second half of the season begin, where they can make a late push. I mean, it's still a tall mountain to ask. I think they're like 11 points out of the playoffs. That is a huge gap to make up in with just like 12 games left in the season. But the thing is, when you have Messi, things can change, and we'll see if Messi does bring his magic into this Miami team, whether this team can really make a run in the second half of the season and sneak into the playoffs. With that being said, I am now going to change sports and look at the last six games to finish off the final match week before we have a month-long break from MLS action due to Leeds Cup. So moving on, in the next game is Austin versus Sporting KC. So this is of course the game that I mentioned, or at least kind of hinted that this actually was moved back an hour. Originally it was supposed to start at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. local time, but they pushed this one back to 8:30 p.m. local time. And honestly, I feel like for at least until September, they need to put all Austin games starting at 8:30. I mean, you simply cannot play game in that Texas heat around that time. I mean, I know Houston does it, but obviously Houston, I say that they probably do it on purpose with the way that that's a way an advantage for them to play in the heat and play in that furnace against opposition. I don't think Austin basically feel like that's the case. They rather want to play in a much cooler position, cooler kind of temperature, and again, having games at 8:30 p.m. right after the sun sets in Austin. Yeah, again, I feel like that's probably something that they might be talking to MLS and basically say that yeah, we can't simply play a game earlier than 8 o'clock. I mean, there's a reason why Austin, when they came into the league, they specially request the league to have all their games, especially in the summer, play no earlier than 8 p.m. except for if the games are going to be on national television. But yeah, coming into this game, Austin 8-5-9, while Sporting KC 6-8-10, all-time meeting. Los Verdes with a 3-1-2 record over Sporting KC, and the last five head-to-head matchup. It was not a memorable experience if you're an Austin fans. They lost 4-1 to Sporting KC before they had a thrilling 4-3 win against Sporting KC. I remember that was the game where they were down 3-1 and they had that incredible comeback to win 4-3. Then they won they won 2-0 on the road against Sporting KC before winning 3-1 against Sporting KC, and then it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams not long ago. And yeah, for Austin, I know in the last game it was a bit of a setback, but they did kind of rotate it a little bit coming into this one, and especially against the Sporting KC side. That I mean, I kind of feel like they've been a team that once again, I wouldn't say that they're as bad as what we've seen in the first 10 game stretch, but they're definitely not good, and that they've also are having problems in terms of holding on to leads and closing out games lately, which that's not great news because Austin has kind of had time rediscover the thing that they had last season, which was this was a team that was the king in terms of comebacks and trying to overcome some adversity. So yeah, we shall see whether or not if Austin can continue that. I mean, they've been in really good form lately, and they definitely have been playing much better and look more like the Austin that we've seen last season, and especially against a Sporting KC team that again they just kind of been stuck. After a great month of May, looked like they were gonna make that comeback. Recently they just have been kind of stuck at a point where there's been times where they've been good, and then they have troubles in terms of holding on leads and dropping in points, and they've been stuck in that spot where they're in contention for the playoffs, but they're just outside of the playoff line. But moving on, in the next match is Colorado and the Houston Dynamo. So as I mentioned, the Rapids is another team that's kind of in see you next season mode, despite getting their first home win last week. They did true in the game against the Portland Timbers, which now the record is 3-9-10, while Houston 8-4-10, and definitely all coming off of their worst display. You got to say of the season against Minnesota, as this game is also going to be 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. In fact, the whole top part of the board is 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific start, and the bottom board is the 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific start. But all-time meeting, it's 15-12 in favor of Colorado, and the last five head-to-head matchup, it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams. In fact, the last two head-to-head has been 1-1 draw. Then Colorado win 1-0 on the road before Colorado win 3-1 on the road, and then Colorado was able to win 3-1 against the Dynamo. So yeah, the Dynamo has had some problems against the Colorado Rapids. You gotta say that, knowing the fact that I know this is a road game, and usually that kind of means automatic L for the Dynamo because this team's suck on the road. When you're facing against a team like Colorado that have only won once this season, you have to simply win this game. Like you gotta say that this is probably the most winnable game on the road. And I know the last game was kind of embarrassing, but this is a good way for them to bounce back against a team that's not doing very well this season and a team that still struggle to score goals. This is a chance for them to bounce back, and we'll see whether they can, of course, do so. Now, in the next game, we got RSL versus the New York Red Bulls. Now, RSL is definitely a team that I'm going to be watching in the second half of the season because I really think they can definitely make a run and can definitely get themselves not only in the top part of the standings, but they maybe even challenge for the top spot in the West. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but again, the West is just so unpredictable, and I just had a feeling maybe RSL could be that team that could find that consistency. Though that being said, watch out how that's just kind of crazy talk, and that maybe a lot of the reason why I say that is because Chicho Arango is on this team, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. He makes this RSL team at least these three times better than what they are right now. And they play against a Red Bulls team that have been struggling this season, both home and on the road, with a 6-8-8 record, while RSL 9-7-7. All-time meetings, 7 wins for both of these teams, 10 draws, and the last 5 head-to-head meeting, it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams. For the Red Bulls did thrash RSL with a 4-0 victory. Then it was a 1-0 win that RSL had against the Red Bulls, a 0-0 draw between both of these teams, and then RSL winning 2-1 against the New York Red Bulls. And again, this is a Red Bull side that still struggled to score goals, and I don't think they're going to score a lot in this game against this RSL team. And that I think what's also more important for this RSL team is the fact that they need to figure out their home form. And in some way, they kind of figured out their home form a little bit in the last home game with a big emphatic victory against Orlando City. But now the question is, can they continue against another Eastern Conference team? And again, I do believe that they could because again, Chicharango he definitely lifts the ceiling of this team, and that I have a feeling they could get themselves another home win in this one that in trying to restore that stadium. I know it's called America First Field, but I'm just gonna continue to call it as the Riot, as most RSL fans say. They're gonna make the Riot a fortress again. Then we go to Portland. They play against Columbus, where this is going to be the first three games that starts at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. But in terms of this game, 5, 8, and 9, that is the Timbers. And against the Timbers, they are in a really bad form lately. Only one win in the last 10 games. There's just been turmoil that is going on once again on and off the pitch, and mostly off the pitch in terms of the whole Moreno kind of situation. But for Columbus, 10-6-6, and you got to say that even though this is not a team that do well on the road, it's a good opportunity to get road wins because I really feel like that fear factor of playing at Providence Park has really been gone in the last couple of seasons. Teams has been able to get wins at Providence Park, where once this was probably one of the toughest plays in terms of trying to get points, but because of the fact the Timbers have not been good this season, both at home and on the road, this is a good chance for Wilfred Nancy team to get something out of it. Though Wilfred Nancy will not be in this game because, of course, he got sent off in the last game that he was managing. But In terms of the all-time meetings, 6-3 in favor of the Timbers, and the last 5 head-to-head matchup, it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams before the Timbers win 3-1 against Columbus. Then the Timbers won 3-2 against Columbus, then Columbus winning 3-2 against the Timbers, and then the Timbers winning 2-1 against the Columbus Crew. So yeah, again, the Timbers and Columbus, they've been getting fair amount of wins, but again, for the Timbers, you just feel like they desperately need a win, and they want to end this first half of the season on a positive note, because they know that you would assume that the second half of the season the turnaround could happen, right? I mean, that's kind of always the case with Giovanni Savarese team, though. Again, when you look at this season, it's kind of hard to believe that that could be the case, but this could be a chance to do so, playing at home and trying to get all three points in this one, and we'll see whether that is the case. Then, moving on, the next one, we got Seattle versus FC Dallas. So Seattle, of course, they had that tough resort against the Quakes, with a 2-0 defeat, and now they return home in this game against FC Dallas. And if there is one team that they think that they have the best chance in terms of getting a home win, it's got to be FC Dallas. I mean, it's been a graveyard for Dallas whenever they play against Seattle on the road. It's always seems to be an automatic L whenever they play them at Lumen's Field. But they have an 8-5-9 record, while Seattle has a 10-5-8 record. All-time meeting, 18-10-10 in favor of Seattle. And in terms of the last 5 head-to-head matchup, the Sounders won 1-0 against Dallas, before Dallas winning 2-0 at home against Seattle. But then Seattle did win 1-0 against Dallas. It was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams before Seattle winning 1-0 against Dallas. In fact, it's been a long time since Dallas has been able to go on the road against the Sounders and get a victory in Seattle. So, yeah, you would think that the Sounders should be able to win this one, but again, they've been having problems in terms of scoring, and even though they did have that good display last weekend. That game against the Quakes was a huge setback. So yeah, we'll see whether they can bounce back in this one, and you got to assume they have to. I mean, this is a Dallas team that's been having problems in terms of goal scoring, and there's a question whether or not if Jesus Ferreira is going to be in this game, and if he's not available in this game, I mean that kind of is give not too much hope for this Dallas team in terms of getting anything out of this one. But I also won't be surprised this could be a 0-0 draw, because again, both of these teams have struggled to score. So, it kind of only makes sense, the fact that this could potentially be the game where, every match week we're going to have one game that has a 0-0 draw. This could potentially be the one. And then finally we got Vancouver versus the LA Galaxy. So this game will be the last game. Well, actually, yeah, this is the last game of me previewing. I don't know why I said that, as this is, well, it is the last game that I'm previewing. Anyway, Vancouver, their wins, draws, and loss record exactly the same, 7-7-7, while the Galaxy 5-7-9. But don't let that record distract you. The fact that the Galaxy has been quietly become one of the hottest team, and really, they're a team that it's hard to believe, but ever since they got rid of Chris Klein, they're still undefeated. They have not lost a game in the air, where they finally got rid of Chris Klein. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 15-7-10 in favor of Vancouver, and the last 5 head-to-head matchup, it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams before Vancouver winning 3-0 against the Galaxy. Then the Galaxy won 5-2 against Vancouver. Then it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams, and then Vancouver won 2-1 against the LA Galaxy. And the Galaxy has had problems against Vancouver recently, especially when they're playing on the road. And the Whitecaps, again, this has been kind of a very frustrating team to figure out, because I think this has been a very entertaining team to watch, but there's been times where it's been kind of inconsistent in terms of how their performance is going to be, and knowing the fact that they just come off of a big win last week, if you go with the inconsistency that they've been showing this season, unable to put up performance that they have couple of performances in a row that they have performed well, they maybe could be due for a loss in this one. However, that being said, they are playing at home. At least throughout the season, they have been pretty good at home, although they have lost a couple more games this season at BC plays that we've seen in the past. And not to mention, again, this is a Galaxy team that has been they're not the same Galaxy team that we saw during the latter era of the Chris Klein era, where this team looked like it was doom and gloom, and that they're already falling in this season. this team is legitimately trying to make a comeback and trying to get themselves closer to the playoff spot. So yeah, they're definitely going to look to try to get some points out of this one. And again, for the Whitecaps, they need to show that consistency. See that's been kind of missing throughout the season, and we'll see whether or not this game will provide that. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at all of these games from the final match week before we had that month-long break because of Leeds Cup. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these games, and let me know in the comments below your prediction in terms of all of these games. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.